My name is Minnie, and I am 61 years old. After my husband Walter passed 3 years ago, my biggest decision was to sell our old memory-filled house and move to a smaller, cozier place near my son Daniel and his family. It is the natural order of things, is it not? A mother wanting to be close to her only child and her 5-year-old blonde grandson, Henry. I pictured cookie baking afternoons, bedtime stories, and the warmth of a multi-generational family under one roof. Well, not exactly one roof, but just a few doors down. I found a sweet little cottage, just a 5-minute walk from their home on Elm Street. For the first few months, it was everything I had hoped for. I helped with Henry, made dinners, tidied up, all with joy and love. My relationship with my daughter-in-law, Chelsea, was fine if a bit distant. But then, small comments started. Things like, "Oh, we have got it, Minnie," or "Henry needs to learn more independence, always delivered with a tight smile. I tried to pull back, but I began to feel like a spare wheel, hovering on the edges of their lives. Then came one ordinary Friday evening. I had baked an apple pie and brought it over, thinking it would be a nice surprise. The air in their home felt different, heavier than usual. Daniel was quiet, and Chelsea would not meet my eyes. Before I tell you what happened next on that fateful evening, I am curious to know where you are watching from. Please let me know your city or state in the comments below. And if you have ever felt like you had to make yourself smaller to fit into someone else's life, hit that like button, so I know I am not alone. Let's go on this journey together. The unease from that Friday night lingered. I decided I must have been imagining things, reading too much into the silence. So the next week, I resumed my usual routine. I picked Henry up from preschool on Tuesday, as Chelsea had a late meeting. We made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at my cottage, and he told me all about his friend Max's new pet turtle. It was a perfect hour. When Chelsea came to get him, she stood in my doorway, her eyes scanning my living room. "Thank you for getting him," she said, her voice flat. "I hope he was not too much trouble." "No trouble at all," I said, smiling. "We had a lovely time. Would you like to come in for some tea?" No, we have to get home. Daniel will be waiting for dinner." She hustled Henry out the door. As she turned to go, she said, "You know, you do not have to do this every week. The preschool has an aftercare program. It is really very good." "Oh, I do not mind," I said, the smile freezing on my face. "I love having him." "I know you do," she said. "But consistency is important for him. A structured environment." The door closed softly behind her. I stood there, holding the plate of untouched cookies I had made for her. Consistency. A structured environment. My spontaneous grandma time was now an unstructured environment. The words felt like tiny paper cuts. A few days later, I was over at their house watching Henry, while Chelsea ran to the grocery store. I noticed the sink was full of dishes, and the playroom was a tornado of toys. Thinking I would be helpful, I rolled up my sleeves. I loaded the dishwasher, wiped down the counters, and organized Henry's toys into their proper bins. I even found a stray sock under the couch and folded it neatly on the armrest. When Chelsea returned, she put the bags down and looked around. Her gaze stopped on the clean kitchen, then swept to the tidy playroom. Her face did not show relief. It showed something else, a kind of stiff annoyance. "You did not have to do all that, Minnie." "It was no trouble," I said brightly. "I wanted to help." "I appreciate the thought," she said slowly. "But really, we have a system. Henry knows where his things go. When you move them, it disrupts his system." I felt my cheeks grow warm. "I am sorry, I did not mean to disrupt anything." "It is fine," she said, turning away to unpack the groceries. "Just maybe next time ask first." That night, I called my oldest friend Martha. We have been friends since our own children were in diapers. I told her about the dishes and the toys and the after-school program. Martha sighed on the other end of the line. "Oh, Minnie, it is a different generation. They have all these ideas about parenting and boundaries. Do not take it personally. She just wants to feel like it is her home." "But it is my home too," I wanted to say. "Not the house, but the family." Instead, I just said, "I suppose you are right." I started a mental checklist. Do not pick up Henry without explicit confirmation. Do not clean. Do not reorganize. Do not offer advice. It felt like learning a new and very confusing dance, where every step I thought was right turned out to be wrong. The final straw came on a Saturday. Daniel had mentioned he was pressure washing the driveway. I knew his back had been bothering him, so I walked over with 2 cold lemonades. He was not outside. I could hear voices from the open kitchen window. Chelsea's voice, sharp and clear. "She is here every other day, Daniel. I feel like I am living in a fishbowl. I cannot even have a bad day without her showing up with a casserole and that concerned look. We need our privacy. We need space to just be a family. Our family." There was a pause. Then Daniel's voice muffled, pleading. "Honey, she is just lonely. She means well." "I do not care what she means." Chelsea shot back, her voice rising. "It is suffocating. You need to talk to her." I stood on their driveway, the condensation from the lemonade glasses chilling my hands. The sun was bright, but I felt cold all over. I turned around and walked back home, pouring the lemonades down my own sink. He never did pressure wash the driveway that day. 2 days later, Daniel showed up at my cottage alone. It was after dinner. He stood on my porch, hands in his pockets, looking like the 10-year-old boy who had broken my favorite vase. "Hey, Mom, can I come in?" "Of course, sweetheart." I let him in my heart, starting a slow, heavy thud in my chest. We sat in the living room. He did not want coffee or tea, so he began picking at a thread on the armchair. "How have you been?" "I have been fine, Daniel. How are you? How is work?" "Work is work." He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, Mom. Chelsea, she is under a lot of pressure. At work, with Henry. You know how it is." I nodded, not saying anything. I knew I had to let him get to the point, even though every fiber of me wanted to make it easier for him to spare him this discomfort. "She feels like she does not have any sovereignty in her own home," he said, using a word that sounded so unlike him, so clearly rehearsed. He would not look at me. "Sovereignty," I repeated softly. "Yeah." He finally met my eyes, his own filled with a pained guilt. "She just needs to feel like it is her space, you know, to run things her way, without commentary." Commentary I had never commented. I had only ever helped, but I saw now that my very presence was a commentary. So he continued, taking a deep breath. We were thinking maybe you could just scale back a bit on coming over, just for a little while, just until she feels more settled, more in control. The room was very quiet. I could hear the ticking of the clock Walter had bought me for our 25th anniversary. Scale back a little while. The words were gentle, but their meaning was a wall being built brick by brick right in front of me. I see, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Of course, Daniel. Whatever you need. His shoulders slumped in relief. Thanks, Mom. I knew you would understand. It is not about you, really. It is just a phase. I forced a smile onto my face. It is okay. I understand. Tell Chelsea not to worry. He stood up, eager to escape now that the hard part was done. He gave me a quick, awkward hug. Love you, Mom. Love you too. I closed the door behind him and leaned against it. The tears did not come immediately. First, there was a hollowing out, a vast emptiness where the picture of my golden years had been. I saw myself alone in this cottage, waiting for a permission to visit that might never come. The tears, when they finally fell, were silent and hot. They were not just for me, but for the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who now saw me as a problem his wife needed to manage. I followed the new rules. I did not drop by. I waited for an invitation. A week passed, then another. My phone was silent, except for Martha checking in. I sent a text to the family group chat. Thinking of you all. Hope you are having a good week. A single thumbs up emoji from Daniel was the only reply. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. It was Chelsea. Her voice was bright, artificially cheerful. Minnie, hi. How are you? I am well, Chelsea. And you? We are good. Listen, I was wondering if you would like to come over for dinner tomorrow night. I am making a roast. It would be nice to catch up. My heart, foolish thing, gave a little leap. Maybe the phase was over. Maybe Daniel had talked to her. Maybe they missed me. That sounds lovely, I said. What can I bring? Just yourself, she said. And, we should talk about a few things. The leap turned into a stumble. We should talk. No good conversation ever started with those words. Sure, I said, my voice now matching her false cheer. I will see you tomorrow. I arrived at 6 o'clock sharp, carrying a bouquet of sunflowers from my garden, a peace offering. Henry answered the door, launching himself at my legs. Grandma, you are here? Oh, my sweet boy, I said, bending down to hug him, breathing in his little boy smell of grass and grape juice. I have missed you. Chelsea appeared behind him. She was wearing a crisp blouse and jeans, her hair perfectly smooth. Hi, Minnie. Come in. The house smelled of rosemary and roast, but the air was cold with tension. Daniel was at the dining table setting out silverware. He gave me a weak smile. Hey, Mom. Dinner was a strained affair. Henry chatted away, a lone bird singing in a still forest. Chelsea asked polite questions about my garden. Daniel talked about a project at work. We were all performing, carefully avoiding the elephant that had taken up residence in the middle of their dining room. After dessert, Chelsea put Henry in front of a cartoon in the living room. She came back to the table, took a deep breath, and placed her hands flat on the wood. Minnie, we need to have a conversation about boundaries. Here it was. I folded my hands in my lap. Okay. It is important for a family unit to have clear, healthy boundaries, she began as if reading from a parenting blog. It fosters respect and independence. Daniel and I, as the nuclear family, need space to establish our own routines, our own dynamics, without external influence. I looked at Daniel. He was studying his empty plate, as if the pattern held the secrets of the universe. I understand you want to help, Chelsea continued, her voice gaining a steely edge. But your help often feels like interference. It undermines my authority with Henry. It makes me feel like a guest in my own home. My mouth was dry. Chelsea, I never meant to. I know you do not mean to, she interrupted. But intent is not the same as impact. The impact is that I feel constantly judged and crowded. I took a shaky breath. I have tried to respect your space, Chelsea. I have not come over unless invited. I stopped picking up Henry. But you are always there, she snapped, the careful facade cracking. In texts, in calls, showing up with food, with gifts. It is a constant pressure. We need a clean break. We need time to breathe without you hovering. Her words were knives, each one sharp and precise. I felt the blood drain from my face. Daniel finally spoke, his voice a hoarse whisper. Chelsea, that is enough. No, Daniel, it is not enough. She turned her fiery gaze back to me. You need to understand this once and for all. Your constant presence is unhealthy for us and for you. You need to get your own life. I felt a tear escape and trail down my cheek. I quickly wiped it away. I just wanted to be a part of my family's life. This is our family, she shouted, standing up so abruptly her chair screeched. Ours, not yours. We need space. Leave now. We need space. Leave now. We need space. The words hung in the air, vibrating with her fury. Time stopped. Henry had come to the doorway, his small face pale and confused. Daniel looked shattered, a man watching his world break in two, and too cowardly to pick up the pieces. In that suspended moment, something in me broke too. But it was not my heart. It was a chain of expectation, of guilt, of the desperate need to be needed. It snapped. I looked at my son, my beautiful boy, who would not meet my eyes. I looked at my grandson, who was starting to cry. And I looked at Chelsea, her chest heaving with righteous anger. I did not say a word. I pushed my chair back slowly, the legs scraping the floor in the profound silence. I walked over to Henry, knelt down, and pulled him into a fierce, tight hug. I kissed his damp cheek. Be good for your mommy, my love, I whispered. Then I stood. I walked to the front door. I opened it, and I stepped out into the cool evening air, closing the door gently behind me, leaving their sacred space and the wreckage of what I thought was my family inside. The walk home was a blur. The 5 minutes felt like an hour, yet also a single second. My body moved on autopilot, one foot in front of the other on the familiar sidewalk. The streetlights buzzed to life, casting long, lonely shadows. I unlocked my cottage door, stepped inside, and stood in the dark. I did not turn on the lights. I did not cry. I simply stood there in the middle of my living room, the echo of Chelsea's scream still ringing in my ears. Leave now. We need space. And then a strange thing happened. The ice-cold shock began to recede, and in its place came a clarity so sharp it was almost painful. It was not the clarity of anger, though a spark of that was there. It was the clarity of fact, of reality. They wanted me gone from their space. Fine, but what space exactly were they talking about? My feet carried me to the small study, to the fireproof lockbox on the top shelf of the closet. My hands were steady as I dialed the combination. Walter's birthday. The latch clicked open. I pulled out a stack of documents, deeds, titles, tax records. I flipped through them under the glow of the desk lamp. There it was, the deed for the house on Elm Street, the one with the pressure-washed driveway. I had never seen the playroom with the disrupted system, the dining table where I was excommunicated. And grantor, Walter James Miller and Minnie Louise Miller. Grantees N.A. Property address, 214 Elm Street. It was not a quitclaim deed to Daniel. It was not a transfer on death document. It was the original deed. Walter and I had bought that house as an investment property 20 years ago when the market was low. When Daniel and Chelsea got married, we let them live there. Pay the utilities, take care of the maintenance. We never got around to formally signing it over. We were going to as a gift for their 5th anniversary. Then Walter got sick, and it just slipped away. The property tax bills came to my P.O. box. The homeowner's insurance was in my name. They had been living in my house, and in their anger, in their desperation for sovereignty, they had forgotten that fundamental legal financial fact. I sat back in the chair, the heavy paper crisp in my hands. Leave now, we need space. A slow, cold smile touched my lips. It held no joy. It held resolution. They would get all the space they could ever want. The next morning, I did not wallow. I showered, dressed, made a strong pot of coffee. Then I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I found the number for Greg Sanderson. Greg had sold me this cottage. He and Walter used to go fishing. He answered on the 3rd ring. Greg Sanderson. Greg, it is Minnie Miller. Minnie, well. Hello there. How are you holding up? I am well, Greg. I need your professional help. I want to sell a property. Immediately. Sure thing. Which one? The cottage. No. The house on Elm Street, 214. There was a long pause on the other end. I could almost hear him thinking, putting the pieces together. That is Daniel's place, right? It is my place, Greg, I said, my voice calm and firm. I am the sole owner on the deed. I want it listed quietly, and I want a quick as-is sale. No sign in the yard. All communication goes through you and my attorney. The current occupants will be given notice to vacate per the standard legal timelines once an offer is accepted. Another pause, longer this time. Then Greg let out a low whistle. Okay, Minnie, I understand. I will need to see the deed. But if you are the owner, I can have it on the market by the end of the week. There is a huge demand for houses in that neighborhood. It will sell fast. Good, I said. The sooner the better. I hung up and called Martha. I told her everything from the scream to the deed to the call to Greg. For once, Martha was speechless. Then she burst out laughing, a loud, joyous cackle. "Oh, honey, you are a dark horse. I have never been prouder of you. They messed with the wrong grandmother." "This is not about pride, Martha," I said, though I felt a flicker of it. "This is about consequences." They drew a line in the sand. I am just showing them which side of it they are actually standing on. Greg was a man of his word. By Friday, the house was listed discreetly on all the realtor databases. No for sale sign marred the pristine lawn. Greg handled everything. He used a lockbox for showings, scheduling them, for times when Daniel and Chelsea were at work, using the key I had given him. He told me the house showed beautifully. It was clean, well-maintained, and in a fantastic school district. The offers started rolling in within days. Greg would call me, his voice a mixture of professional excitement and personal awe. "We have got an offer at asking price, Minnie. Cash. Now we have 110,000 over. I have a young couple. Anya and Ben. They are pre-approved. They love it, and they are willing to waive the inspection contingency for a quick close." I sat at my kitchen table, the paperwork spread out before me. It felt surreal. I was selling my son's home out from under him, and he had no idea. The part of me that was still a mother ached, but the part of me that was a woman who had been publicly, cruelly ejected held firm. "Take the offer from the young couple," I told Greg. "The one waiving inspection. Get it done." The wheels of real estate and law began to turn. My attorney sent the formal notice to vacate to Daniel and Chelsea at the Elm Street address, citing the sale of the property and giving them 30 days to move after closing. It was sent certified mail. Greg assured me it was all by the book, cold and impersonal. I imagined the letter arriving. I imagined Chelsea picking it up, her face draining of color as she read the legalese that translated to, "The owner has sold the house. You must leave." I did not hear from them. The silence was deafening. Perhaps they thought it was a mistake, a scam. Perhaps they were in too much shock to process it. The closing date was set for 3 weeks out. The day of the closing, I signed the final papers at the title company's office. Greg was there, and my attorney. It took 20 minutes. I signed my name, Minnie Louise Miller, over and over. With each signature, I felt lighter. I was not just signing away a house. I was signing away the burden of their resentment, the weight of their unwelcome. "It is done," Greg said, shaking my hand. "The funds will be wired to your account tomorrow. The keys have been released to the buyers." "Thank you, Greg." I drove home not to Elm Street, but to my cottage. I made a cup of tea and sat on my porch, watching the birds at the feeder. The sun was warm on my face. I waited. My phone rang at 4:17 that afternoon. The screen flashed Daniel. I let it ring 3 times, then answered. "Hello, Mom." His voice was a panicked shriek, all pretense of calm gone. "There are people here." "Strangers at the door. They say they just bought the house. They have keys. What is going on? What did you do?" I took a slow sip of my tea. It was Earl Grey with a hint of lavender. It was perfectly steeped. "I did exactly what you and Chelsea asked me to do, Daniel," I said, my voice quiet and even. "I left. I gave you space. And as the owner of the space you requested, I leave I decided what to do with it. I sold it. You sold it. You sold our house. But this is our home. No. Daniel. I said the clarity from that first night back in my veins. It was my home. You were living in it, and you made it abundantly clear that my ownership, my connection to it, was a burden. So I removed the burden for all of us. He was sputtering sounds of disbelief and rage mixing on the line. I could hear Chelsea crying in the background, and the confused murmur of the new buyers, Anya and Ben, probably still standing on the porch. You cannot do this. This is insane. Where are we supposed to go? That, I said, is no longer my concern. You are a grown man with a family. You will figure it out. You have 30 days from today to vacate. The notice was sent. Mom, please. You have to fix this. There is nothing to fix, Daniel. The sale is final. The house belongs to Anya and Ben now. I suggest you start packing. I hung up the phone. My hand was trembling, but my spirit was still. I had not raised my voice. I had not argued. I had simply stated the facts they had chosen to ignore when they drew their line in the sand. The phone rang again immediately, and again. I silenced it and placed it face down on the table. I finished my tea, watching a cardinal feed its mate. The space around me was quiet. It was my space. And for the first time in a long time, it felt peaceful. The call came from Chelsea 2 days later. Her voice was strained, stripped of all its former sharpness, down to a raw, terrified core. Minnie, we need to talk, please. We can talk, I said. Not at your house, not at mine. The neutral ground of a chain coffee shop on the outskirts of town seemed fitting. I arrived first and bought a black coffee. I sat at a small table by the window. They arrived together looking like survivors of a shipwreck. Daniel's eyes were red-rimmed. Chelsea clung to his arm, her face pale and gaunt. They sat down across from me. No one spoke for a full minute. How could you? Daniel finally whispered the betrayal, etched deep in his features. How could I? I repeated softly. Let me remind you, Daniel. You came to my home and asked me to scale back. You said it was just a phase. Then in your dining room, your wife screamed at me to leave, that you needed space away from me. She said I needed to get my own life. I was just following instructions. But we did not mean... Chelsea started, her voice trembling. What did you mean, Chelsea? I asked, turning my gaze to her. When you said, leave now, we need space. What exactly was your desired outcome? That I would go back to my cottage and sit by the phone, waiting for you to maybe, someday, allow me a sliver of your lives again, on your terms, with your permission. We are family, Daniel burst out. You do not do this to family. Family. I said the word tasting like ash. Family does not publicly humiliate and eject one of its own. Family does not use a grandmother's love as a weapon against her. You made it clear I was not part of your family unit. You defined the boundary. I am simply respecting it. Permanently. Chelsea began to cry quiet, desperate sobs. Where are we supposed to go? The rental market is impossible. We have Henry. I reached into my purse and pulled out a plain white envelope. I slid it across the table to them. This is not a gift, I said. This is the last time I will help you. It is a portion of the proceeds from the sale of my house. It should be enough for a security deposit and first and last month's rent on an apartment. A fresh start. In your own space. Daniel stared at the envelope as if it were a snake. We do not want your money. Then do not take it, I said, standing up. Throw it away. But it is there. Consider it the final piece of my interference, my last undermining of your authority. After this, you will have all the space you need. You will have no more casseroles, no more unannounced visits, no more concerned looks. You will have exactly what you asked for. I looked at my son, my heart a dull ache in my chest. I gave you a home, son, but I cannot give you respect if you do not know how to treat it. I turned to leave. Mom, wait! Daniel called out, his voice breaking. I paused, but did not turn around. What about Henry Chelsea? Pleaded a final, weak attempt to grasp a lever. He misses you. He asks for you every day. That, I said, looking over my shoulder, is the true tragedy of the space you demanded. And it is a tragedy of your own making. When you are settled in your new independent life, and if you decide that a relationship with your son's grandmother is healthy for him after all, you know where to find me. But the ball, as they say, is in your court. Do not drop it. I walked out of the coffee shop, the bell jingling cheerfully behind me. I got into my car and drove away. I did not look in the rearview mirror. The first few weeks were the hardest. The quiet in the cottage was a physical presence. I would wake up and for a split second forget. Then the memory of the silence on the phone, the image of Daniel's shattered face in the coffee shop, would rush back in. The grief was not a storm, but a slow, steady rain. I grieved the loss of my daily connection to Henry, a pain so acute it felt like a phantom limb. I grieved the son I thought I had, the one who would stand up for his mother. But I had made my choice, and with each passing day, the choice felt more like a necessity. The money from the sale was substantial. I paid off the cottage completely. I was debt-free for the first time since Walter and I were newlyweds. Martha dragged me out. Come on, she said. The library has a new book club. It is for people who actually read the book, not just drink wine. Reluctantly, I went. The book was a historical novel I would never have picked up myself. The women were my age, a mix of retirees and part-time workers. We argued passionately about the protagonist's choices. I found myself talking, really talking for 2 hours. No one needed me to scale back. No one found my opinions disruptive. On a whim, I signed up for a watercolor class at the community center. My first attempts were muddy and vague, just washes of gray and brown. But the instructor, a patient woman named Elena, showed me how to layer color, how to find the light. One afternoon, I tried to paint the cardinal from my porch. It was not perfect, but the red was vibrant, a shock of life on the paper. The mail brought a small, lumpy envelope with no return address. Inside was a piece of construction paper folded in half. On the front, in crayon, was a stick figure with grey curls next to a tall stick figure and a little one. A wobbly sun shone in the corner. Inside, in Chelsea's neat handwriting, it said, "Henry wanted you to have this." And below, in Henry's unmistakable, sprawling letters, "I miss you, grammar, it's you." I held the card to my chest and cried. But this time the tears were not just of loss. They were of love, stubborn and persistent, for a little boy caught in the middle. And perhaps a little for the woman who had finally found the strength to love herself enough to walk away. The lesson was not about winning or revenge. It was about a profound and painful truth. Love cannot exist without respect. And sometimes the most loving act is to stop pouring your love into a vessel that has chosen to be closed to you. It is to pour it into yourself instead, to tend to your own garden so that if someone ever does come back, respectful and open-handed, they will find you not withered and waiting, but thriving in your own sun. I do not know what the future holds for Daniel and Henry. The door in my heart is not locked, but it is no longer standing wide open, letting in the cold. It is a door I control now, and behind it, I am discovering that for a 61-year-old woman, her own company can be surprisingly good. There is space here in this cottage, in this life I am rebuilding, and it is not empty space. It is being filled slowly with the colors from my paintbrush, the spines of new books, the laughter of new friends, and a quiet, hard-won peace. If you have ever had to make an impossible choice to protect your own peace, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. Sharing our stories helps us feel less alone. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like. It lets me know these shared experiences matter. And if you want to join me for more conversations about family healing and finding your strength later in life, consider subscribing. I would be honored to have you here. Thank you for listening and for being part of this community. Take care of yourselves and remember your space. Your peace is worth protecting.